All right, and welcome to the latest edition of the Right Brain Warm-Up. I think we all need a bit of fun in our lives, particularly with what's going on in the world. So we're having a comedian special on this edition. I'm your host, Alex Belden. We have three amazing comedians here today. Starting at the top, we've got Steve Philp. Then we've got Tommy Little.
Hola.
And we have Cal Wilson over to the right there. Thanks for joining us all. So this is obviously the webcam series where we hopefully retrain your brain to be more creative in 30 minutes. So these guys are going to tell us about their creative tips, why they're creative, how they are creative with their comedy, and what they're doing in these turbulent times to stay creative. So I might just read out a little spiel about each, just so you all know who is. So Tommy is one of Australia's most loved comedians. He tours to sold-out theatres. He's host of the top-rating HitFM show, the Carrie and Tommy Show, and is a regular on the project and Hughesy, We Have a Problem. Is that enough of a bump up there, Tommy?
Man, you've earned that $10 I paid you to give me a good intro. Thank you.
No worries. All right. Cal is a New Zealand-born stand-up comedian, radio and television presenter living in Melbourne. She's a regular on Hughesy, We Have a Problem, Have You Been Paying Attention, has also written 2 children's books, so published author as well. So awesome to have you on here, Cal.
I liked Tommy's introduction better.
Yeah.
So add some more.
It was a perfect time for you to say, and next up we have Cal Wilson, and on to the next person.
Yeah.
I think that's what's coming now, right? So,
and up the top there we have Steve Philp, is Sydney-based stand-up comedian originally from Newcastle, who tells jokes on stages all over Australia and before TV shows such as Ready Steady Cook, the NRL Footy Show, and Australia's Got Talent. So thanks for coming on, Steve, Tommy, and Cal. And I'm Alex, and I'm some guy with an enormous nose. Some people think I look like Tommy sometimes, which I think that's a bit rude to Tommy, to be honest.
Who's got a bigger nose, me or you?
Mine's pretty big.
Oh yeah, Phil, you got one? Yeah. I reckon.
I don't think I. What an odd start. Have you just literally got Tommy on because you wanted to compare your noses?
Yeah, that's it. So that's the whole episode. So that's it. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We might start off with a question I've been asking of every single person who's come on. And the answer's always been different, which I think's been cool. So I might start with you, Cal. What is creativity to you?
Creativity to me is looking at something ordinary and turning it into something new and delightful.
Brilliant. Short and succinct. I love it. Tommy, what's creativity to you?
Was that me?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, sorry, brother.
No,
I was too busy thinking of names for our game show, All About Noses. So I was stuck on the name Who Can Smell What From Where.
Know the face, can't pick the nose?
Yeah, I was thinking that, or the celebrities you knows.
Very good.
Well, what about the 6 o'clock nose?
It's on newsreaders.
That's good.
Yeah, nose readers.
It's nose delivered differently.
Yeah. Is that a yes or is that a nose?
Oh,
that's good. The nose have it.
I think we could be sniffing a winner here, I think, Tommy.
Good. Creativity. Bro, creativity for me has just always been an excuse to not get stuff wrong. So instead of them saying it's wrong, I found teachers quite early on with me would say, that's a different way of looking at it, or that's a creative answer. And I realized that in creativity, there was no wrong answers. And so I was suddenly very drawn to the idea of creativity because it meant I could do something. And it didn't matter how shit it was. People can't say it's wrong. You can't look at an art project. You can say you don't like it, but you can't say it's wrong. And to me, that's creativity. It's an excuse
to be shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I like Tommy's answer better again.
Steve, what's creativity to you?
Yeah, I guess they both said it, but it's an escape for me. Most people I know who aren't creative are pretty bloody boring. And so that whole escape, you generally get sucked into these conversations with people they're mostly punters who come to gigs, and afterwards they want to talk to you about some really boring stuff, and that's when you escape. But you know, hanging out with other like-minded people who are, you know, creative in their own and getting their tangent on something is such an escape from, you know, the real world, and I think that's what drew me into it. I grew up in a kind of pretty boring house environment. My dad had thousands of different jobs, and he was working really hard to just put food on the table. And I quickly worked out that I didn't want to do that. So I was going to have to be creative, and that was an escape in itself, right? So not fun.
Just a question, Philpy, for you. Is creativity an excuse to hang soft porn on your walls?
That's actually that's not porn. That's part of my nose. Isn't it?
If it's art, it's not porn, though, isn't it? Isn't that how it works?
No, they said if it's hard, it's not porn. And I thought, no, if it's hard, it is porn. That's literally the definition of where it goes from art to porn. It's hard.
Well, this isn't even my house. I just broke in next door, and they had better artwork. Someone's going to come in pretty soon.
Well, I think you kind of realise that you guys are obviously super creative. Like, I think there's something about comedians and the quick wit that you guys have that is, a lot of people overthink things. Is that fair to say? Like, do you guys sometimes, is it good not to think? Maybe Tommy?
I think too much, but it's never productive. Like it won't be solving the world. It'll be about the smallest little bit of my day and one interaction with a person where they didn't breathe in and out. They breathe twice quickly in and then out. And I will not be able to stop thinking about that all day. I'll start going like, does that mean they've got less time to live than everyone else? Because maybe if we've only gotten a certain number of breaths in a lifespan, is this person only going to get to live half a life? And I'll literally lay awake in bed staring at the roof because this prick breathed twice through his nose and once out through his mouth. Now I can't stop thinking of that. And so I think that's probably consistent amongst comedians, useless dwelling, but on useless information. Cal, is that fair?
That's exactly the same. And like, I'm quite an anxious person, and so that lends itself to comedy in a way, because you really think too hard about something and you kind of drill down on stuff. I think that's the thing for me, is that you something happens. Like this afternoon, just before we started this thing, I put my hand into my bag to find my glasses, and there was a tomato in my bag, and I don't know where the tomato has come from. Like, I'm so confused. There's like a full tomato in my bag.
Was it like
I don't know
fresh?
how many days it's. Yeah, well, it's firm. It's not rotting, thank God. But I just went to the supermarket, and I don't know if you think this when you go to the supermarket, but I'm always like, oh, what if they stop me and want to check in my bag because I look suspicious or something? But if they had stopped me this afternoon at the supermarket, they would have found a tomato. Like, I've got incriminating evidence planted on me, and I know that I will think about this for days, trying to work out where the fucking tomato came from.
I think it's even funny that you went to stealing. You're worried about stealing, because for me, the tomato, I would rather be caught stealing something than just with a rogue tomato. So if they said, did you steal that tomato? I'd have to say yes, even though I didn't, because I didn't want to explain how else I had a tomato.
Yeah. Oh, no, I didn't steal it. This is my support tomato.
I also think that, especially if there was a police officer who found you, Cal, with a tomato in your bag, they were going to suspect something completely different if they found Tommy with a tomato in his bag, right? I think they're thinking there's some pretty dodgy shit going on, right?
Which bag are we talking about?
That's right. And what kind of tomato? Was it Roma or...
Yeah. No, it was a proper little round. I can go and get it if you want to go look at it.
Like a little tomato?
A Tommy tomato?
And like a reasonable sized tomato, but not the sort of tomato that I normally buy. Like, I normally have the truss ones with all the greenery on them, and this is just a single perfect tomato. I asked my son if he had planted it, and he claims not to. And then my husband went,
done it all right.
When you say
real long. You go, Steve. You go.
When you say he planted it, do you mean that he put some toilet?
Look, I haven't cleaned my
he
bag
nursed it for 4.5 months.
In the bottom.
Yeah, tomato tree will start growing out.
Well, it actually leads on to my next question. You guys obviously can't perform to live crowds now. I know obviously the comedy festival being cancelled is kind of devastating. You're obviously finding new ways to be creative. Like, what are you guys doing apart from finding tomatoes in your bag and ruminating on that?
Actually, I've realised I just perform to tomatoes now. That's my niche audience.
Do you get canned laughter in that case?
Ah!
Zing. Boom.
I've been going on Instagram Live a bit and just chatting to friends, and kind of just that connecting with people feels really nice in that way. I kind of at the moment feel like, oh my God, how does this job work in the new world kind of thing? And, but at the moment I feel like the most important thing is to connect and just check that everyone's okay. Like, I feel like that's what I'm doing at the moment. I haven't come up with the great thing that I'm going to do every day for the rest of quarantine, but I just feel like just checking in on people is making me feel so much better at the moment. Yeah,
I mean, that's why I've started doing this thing, because it is just good to see people's faces and talk about some stuff that's kind of positive and fun. Hopefully that's what you obviously comedians, like I've heard sometimes comedians say, I'm not, solving the world's problems, but making people laugh is a huge solution to a lot of people's run-of-the-mill day lives where they're kind of depressed in their job, and you guys give a great outlet. So Steve, what are you doing to stay creative in this environment?
Well, as a creative, I've always been a procrastinator. Like I was someone that have 9,000 ideas, but I would never finish them. In fact, I had an idea for a superhero once called Procrastination Man, and he only had half a cape, wasn't finished yet. So I've always been like that. But because of this, and I lost a fair bit of work, as a lot of people did, I started to hustle. So I instantly got on the tools and did some labouring. And as a 44-year-old man who's never picked up a shovel, it wasn't the greatest thing that's ever happened. But since that, I've not non-stop thinking about how I can make money, to the point where I've Googled counterfeiting machines online.
You got to make sure you got to make sure you get the original counterfeit machine, though, don't you?
Well done. Yeah. I've got a theory. Counterfeiters are stupid. They always go with like hundreds and 50s and hundreds. Then they'll go into a shitty convenience store and, try and buy like a packet of chewing gum and then get the change, right? Why? I could live off 5s and 10s. I'm sure most people could, right? Let's just counterfeit those. I have been doing a couple of gigs, weirdly. So had the idea to do these Zoom gigs. In hindsight, they sounded horrible. Spoke to a friend who's a CEO of a company, and he's got about 10 staff or so, and they're just operating as normal. They haven't really been affected financially, except that they're all working from home. And he said, "Hey, do you want to pop up in our meeting and just do some comedy?" He said, "You probably won't hear anyone laugh." So it sounded like most corporate gigs. Then, I gave it a go, and it was probably the most anxiety I've ever had before any gig ever. Sitting in my lounge room, just with no crowd, and them not knowing if they're going to laugh or not. But weirdly, it went really well. I got a little bit of info about each of them, and you guys would know at a corporate gig, that's what they want you to do all the time when you're there in person, and you're like, "Shut up! I just want to do my jokes." But weirdly, that was the exact thing that worked. So I had a little line on each of them. Just sort of pop up and mention a bit about them, and they would pop up on the screen individually, and it was like they were getting their own little comedy show. So it worked really well. I've got a couple more this week, and hopefully I can put the shovel down.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, I was watching, I don't know if you guys watched the James Corden special last night, where he had like just, going from Zoom to Zoom, so you have all these people performing. I'm wondering if there will be a little bit of that in the future. We go, do we really need to get everyone in the studio all the time? Can we just do a bit of that? It's kind of interesting how people are just having to be creative in the way they're doing their things. So Tommy, is that something that you are thinking about, new ways to perform and stuff?
No, that's not. Bro, this is my big. You're all being very lovely and optimistic. This time, I'm very lucky because I work in radio and I have another job. So I'm very aware that I'm lucky when people are losing their jobs, but I'm also not going to pretend that this time is good. It sucks ass, and I'm a very social person. I love doing stand-up, and like Steve, it's great that you can do gigs on Zoom and stuff, but my big fear is that we're never going to go fully back. My big fear is that once this kind of goes away, we're still going to keep people at an arm's length more, and obviously big gatherings are going to be affected. So, man, I'd love to be positive and say, you know, it's a great time for ingenuity and innovation and fantastic. But honestly, my feeling is like, fuck this.
Yeah. I wonder if when it comes back there, everyone will be just so excited it might get everyone back together stronger. There's also that possibility, but who knows how long that's going to be. Hey,
bro, once this fully lifts, the neighborhood orgies that are going to kick off, my God.
Oh, yeah.
People just desperate to touch anybody and everybody. I can't. There we go. That's the optimist. Guys, I'm being positive.
Because that 1 in, 1 out rule at the moment is not working very well for those things, is it?
The world's going to become a bit like the painting behind Steve, because that's what we're all going to go to.
That's right.
What techniques do you guys use to get, I mean, your material? I know you said like you focus in on one thing. Is there other, like, do you watch other comedians to see how they're doing things, or you try to keep it fresh your own way? Maybe Cal?
I think, like I always find during a normal comedy festival, that's the time when I feel the most creative, when I've written the show and then I go and see someone else and I'm like, no, you can do that with comedy. Like, I find sometimes that just being around other creative people doing really lovely things kind of spurs me on as well. Like, I get excited about comedy again. But I find just doing something mundane is a really great way to come up with ideas. Like, this sounds so domestic. I have a lot of good ideas at the washing line, because I feel like part of me is just occupied in doing a thing, and then the rest of my brain is just thinking about what it wants to think about. And because I'm not fully concentrating, I'm not censoring myself. Oh, that's a dumb idea. That wouldn't work. I don't like that. I'm just
so your subconscious just bubbles up.
Yeah. And also driving to gigs, talking to myself is also another way that I come up with stuff.
Tommy? So Steve, you go.
Sorry, I use drugs and alcohol mainly as a technique.
While doing the washing.
Yeah. Yes. Well, believe it or not, I have a home keg system here, and the only place it fits is right next to the washing machine. And so I quite often like to do the washing. Let's put it that way.
I find forcing yourself to do things is, as painful as it is beneficial. So I might wake up in the morning, and if I've been lazy and I haven't done much, I will say you can't start your day till you write a joke that you would put on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. And you just sit at your computer, and it sucks. The process sucks. But after however long, 40 minutes, you've got a joke, or you've got a couple of jokes or a few jokes. I feel like just putting yourself in that situation. I like doing that with stand-up as well, just getting up and forcing myself to riff on a topic for 10 minutes. And it's going to be a bit funny, because we're doing this job because we're funny. And I know we're not encouraged to say that, but we are. Like, otherwise, what are we doing? We're wasting everybody's time. So I think as long as you put yourself in a situation where you force an outcome, there always will be one. And if there's not, maybe you should, consider other things. Well, I don't mean that as in other jobs, but find something that works for you. Yeah. And so if you then try that and it doesn't work, don't do that day after day. But I find, for me, forcing myself into a situation where I need to achieve something before I let myself do the next thing, generally.
Well, I mean, as a non-comedian, when I watch you guys and it seems so effortless, I think most people don't understand the amount of work it probably takes to seem effortless. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so, because everyone's got a funny mate. Everyone's been funny at the pub, and so when they see you doing something that looks as casual as that, they just assume, oh, it's easy. But that's the hidden craft of it, I suppose. And also, like, I find sometimes you have to write 9 really terrible jokes just to get the 10th one that's great. Like, you have to go through the process of writing a whole lot of rubbish, because that will somehow lead you to the gem that you can still use, or that you can use.
Yeah, I do all of my stand-up writing on stage, which is an excuse really for being lazy. It means I'll do trial shows now, and I might do a trial show that'll go for an hour, And the only bit I do questions at the end from like a trial audience, and the only bit that might be good from the trial is something that came up in a question and answer that I realised, that can be a joke, and I hadn't even set out to talk about remotely anything like that. But it's just a thing of doing it over and over. Of course, terrible for the audiences involved.
As a dad, and most of my material comes from that, I tend to be meaner to my kids so that the outcome can relate. And so that's not great in the dad sense, but it's good on stage.
I had a failed love life for almost 15 years for exactly the same reason. Thought happiness and love is just not as funny.
Well, it's that trope of the tortured comedic genius who's the most depressed person in the world, but they use all that to put in their comedy. Is there a bit of element of truth in that?
Oh man, I mean, I think it depends. I think it depends what comedy you do. My comedy isn't intelligent enough to get away with being depressed as well. I just be like, who's the dumb, unhappy fuckhead?
What's really frustrating is when something bad does happen to you and people go, you can use it for material. And it's like, no, I just want to be sad for a minute. That's my cat got run over. They're like, no, get it on stage.
Hey, well, we've almost gone for about half an hour. So at this point, I might ask one of the questions from the book, which hopefully you've got a little answer for. So this question is, it's actually question 70 from, here's the book, The Right Brain Workout. Tommy, you've got a question there as well. Hopefully.
I owe you a massive apology, Alex, because I said I would give you a question for it and then I completely forgot about it. And the book already exists. So
it's all right. It's all right. We're doing a second edition, so you can write a question for the next one. So that's good.
I will.
There you go.
I'm just going to do Tommy's question again.
Yeah.
Were you scared of competing with my question, Cal? And so you thought, no.
I think that's what it was. It's more like once something is not in front of my face, I forget all about it. Like I leave the iPad and I'm like, nothing exists.
I did read back my question, forgetting that it was one of my questions. And I honestly, it was one of the sadder moments in my life. I went, the questions are it's really creative and great. And then I flipped to this one and I went like this, and then I realised it was my question. I was like, no.
Well, hopefully you like this question. This is by Darby Hudson, who is a poet. His question is, if you were a tiny plastic figurine, what 2 tiny plastic accessories would come with you and why? So who's ready to kick off with that question? If you're watching or listening at home, answer with your comments down below or answer in your head and see if you make yourself laugh. Cal, what's your answer?
Well, for some reason, I've decided my tiny figurine is in a wilderness situation, which I never am. But the thing I thought was a tiny Swiss Army knife and a mobile phone, because that kind of covers everything. Like you can, you got a compass on your Swiss Army knife. If that doesn't work, you just call an Uber on your phone. Like if it was based on me as a real human, as a tiny figurine, it would just be me and 2 cats.
At least with the Swiss Army knife, you can cut up your tomato if you happen to find one in your bag.
It all makes sense now.
Don't bug me for weeks.
Cal, what problem would you have that a knife would solve that a mobile phone would be useless for?
So what I couldn't solve with a knife? Well, I suppose I could order Uber Eats, but I'd be threatening someone else to use their account with my knife.
And also, I don't know if you ever tried to stab anyone with a Nokia 3310.
Oh, you just beat them to death with it. They're so heavy.
They're unbreakable. You wouldn't want to find an iPhone because it's smashed everywhere. Steve, what's your answer?
I've been my iPhone.
Well, one of my answers was written by the kid that lives 2 doors up, because I was just out the front before and try not to drink today because it's pretty hard not to, right? At the moment, it feels like all I'm doing. I thought I was an alcoholic before this. Turns out I was just practicing. But I was out the front and this 10-year-old kid who I don't even know that well yelled out, "Steve!" He goes, "This is the first time I've ever seen you in 2 years without a beer in your hand," right? And I was like, Wow, thanks for that, mate. So I think I'd have a little stubby.
Yeah, that's how you prove that kid wrong. You immortalize the drinking habit in a plastic figurine.
Yeah, and I think I'd also have like a little vat, a container that I'd have some kind of cure to any type of pandemic that ever comes along. Just so we have to do this shit anymore.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
Tommy, what have you got?
Think of how annoying it'd be though, Philby, if you had the cure. Think of how much people would be harassing you.
Yeah. I know. Imagine you were Robert Smith. He was like, surely you've got the cure by now.
And also, is it always a replenishing pandemic ointment, or have you only literally got enough for like 3 people?
Yeah,
well, and then you've got to choose.
Well, I prefer that, because then you can pick the right people. I suppose.
But also, when you're holding it like this, you know that anybody's hands who's going in it, they've got whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
So you've got the grossest little pit of germs. You really want a squeezer or single serve
capsules.
Yeah, so you could
surely it would be one of those garden sprays where you pump the handle in and they just do a wide spray. Wouldn't you want that? Like, so you can just cover a wider area.
Yeah, like those perfume ones when you walk into a mire and
then yes.
Cure. Aqua to cure.
just on my wrist.
Toilet?
Yeah.
Mine. Am I doing mine?
Yeah, no. You're doing yours. Yep, go.
Mine would be, the first one would be a hat, a broad-brimmed hat, because I've always wanted to be a hat guy. And like, I know it's not a superpower, but I feel like if I could see my figurine rocking a wide-brimmed hat with confidence, it'd give me the...
Like a Pharrell type hat?
Oh, too much.
Too much, yeah.
Alex, that's too much. Just a normal wide-brimmed hat.
An Akubra or like a cricket hat.
In the middle of a Akubra and Pharrell. Like a kind of cool hat.
Would it have corks on it, Tommy? Would you have corks hanging off, like a...
That was going to be my other item.
Yeah.
Optional corks. No, my other item was just going to be a different hat. It was going to be a yarmulke or something. Mix it up.
Oh, 2 hats little.
You can open a restaurant at the end of it. All right. All right, so that's about, I reckon that's good time. It's about half an hour or so. So have you got one more thing you want people to know about Alex before we leave? Tommy.
Alex, are you just saying that because your remaining meeting time thing has popped up on the screen? you haven't paid the full fee for a business account?
It is $20.99 a month. That's a lot of money. When things on lockdown.
It literally popped up on the screen and I was like, I haven't seen that before. Oh, we're running out of time. Then you go, well, guys.
The guy was doing this one. Was doing this is like the equivalent of.
Sorry, bro. What was the final question?
What's the one last thing you'd like people to know about creativity, or just anything else you want to say?
I reckon there's always more ideas. Like when I start writing my comedy festival show, I go, oh, I have written all the jokes. There are no more jokes. And then by the end of the writing process, you go, oh, there are more jokes. You just have to give it time and have faith in it.
I agree with that, to the point where sometimes these days people keep talking about the PC culture ruining comedy. I think if you can't write a joke because you think people are going to be offended by it, then you're not doing a good enough job. Like, there's so many things to write jokes about, like so many things. And if you have to pick a shitty topic that's either racist or sexist or whatever, then you're not doing your job right? There's a million things you can write jokes about. Do it, right? It's easy.
Yeah, I agree. I would say don't be scared to make stuff that's shit. I think so many people sit on an idea or they reckon they've got a good screenplay in them, but they will never write it because they want to make it good. Yeah. It's going to be shit anyway. So you may as well make it to make the next thing, which will also be a bit shit.
Yeah.
To make the next
and then you get better.
Well, I've always found that, like, it's easy to come up with the idea. It's the actual making it. That's the hard bit. So just go make it and you'll get better at doing it. And the next idea will be better.
Yeah. And the longer you don't make something, the longer it will be. like as soon as you build things up to be big ideas, like if you think you've got an idea that they're going to make into a movie that's going to be your ticket to Hollywood, but you haven't made a short film in the last week or whatever, you're never going to make your movie. So just start making things and accept that most of them are going to be shit, but enjoy doing it, because that's what it is.
Yeah, I think that's amazing advice. So yeah, I think everyone at home, hopefully you've all enjoyed this little thing. We've got 6 minutes and 11 seconds before it cuts out, so I better shut up.
More nose talk. More nose talk.
Look at these nose. Oh my. All right, legends. Thanks very much. For everyone at home, comment, like, whatever the people do on socials, do those things. Go and have a look at Cal and Tommy's and Steve's websites, and Steve and his sexy painting is very good. So we'll say goodbye for now, and when in doubt, turn to your right side. Have a good day.
Good on you guys.